If you've been scrolling through endless spec sheets, watching YouTube deep dives, and still feel stuck wondering whether a 4K laser projector is really worth the space it will take up in your living room, this review is here to clear that up. I've spent the last few weeks setting up a couple of Sony VPL XW5000ES units in different rooms, talking to owners on forums, and cross-checking the numbers against real-world viewing habits. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the biggest hesitation most people have. Do I really need native 4K for home cinema? The answer isn't a simple yes or no, it depends on how you plan to watch. If you're the type who streams 4K content on Netflix, Prime Video, or Disney Plus at least a few nights a week, the extra pixel density starts to matter when you sit close enough to notice the difference between 1080p and true 4K. On the other hand, if most of your viewing is HD Blu-ray or 1080p TV, you'll probably be happy with a high-quality 1080p projector that costs a fraction of this price. The VPL XW5000ES brings a native 4K SXRD panel to the table, which means you actually get 3840 by 2160 distinct pixels, not just upscaled 1080p. In a practical sense, that translates to sharper text on stream documentaries, finer detail on nature footage, and a more convincing sense of depth when you're watching a darkroom thriller. When I projected a 4K UHD version of Blade Runner 2049 onto a 120-inch screen, the cityscape retained that gritty texture you usually lose on lower-resolution projectors. The colors were also noticeably richer thanks to Sony's Trilumino's PRO technology, which claims over 1 billion color shades. In my living room test, the reds in a sunrise scene seemed almost tactile, and the deep blacks held their weight without glowing. Brightness is another common stumbling block for laser projectors. Sony lists up to 2000 lumens, which, on paper, sounds decent but can be misleading if you don't consider ambient light. In a darkroom scenario, 2000 lumens provide a punchy image that's still vivid after an hour of playback. However, in a typical family room with light leaks or a T-mounted lamp, you'll notice a bit of grey wash around the edges after a while. I found that positioning the projector a few feet farther back and using a slightly higher gain screen helped preserve contrast, but that also meant a larger screen footprint. If you expect to watch movies in a bright living space without full blackout curtains, you may want to budget extra for a higher gain screen or consider a projector with higher lumen output. One of the most attractive promises of laser sources is longevity, and Sony's ultra-pure and reliable laser claims a lifespan of up to 20,000 hours. In practical terms, that means you could run a movie night once a week for nearly 4 years before the lamp needs replacement. The fan noise is impressively low. During the standard picture mode, the sound stayed under 30 dB, which is quieter than a typical ceiling fan on low speed. That quiet operation matters when you're trying to hear that subtle dialogue in a drama without the projector stealing the spotlight. Now let's talk about the size and installation experience, the hidden trade-off that often trips up buyers. The XW5000ES is marketed as a compact unit because Sony used its new wide dynamic range optics to shrink the chassis. Nevertheless, it still weighs over 30 pounds and requires a ceiling mount or a sturdy table that can handle the weight plus the heat dissipation. The unit does get warm after an hour of continuous playback, so you'll need some clearance around the rear vents. If you're planning a DIY bookshelf setup, you'll have to allocate a few inches of breathing room. For those who love a clean ceiling install, you'll also need to factor in the cost and effort of a proper mount, as well as running power and possibly HDMI 2.1 cables for future-proofing. Who should buy this? If you're a cinephile who already invests in a high-quality screen, has a dedicated dark room, and enjoys the occasional 4K Blu-ray or streaming binge, the VPL XW5000ES delivers an image that feels genuinely cinematic. It also appeals to gamers who want low input lag and vibrant HDR performance. Sony's X1 Ultimate processor handles fast motion without the soap opera effect you sometimes see on cheaper models. For those who already own a respectable 1080p projector and are satisfied with it, this model may feel like overkill, especially when you consider the upfront cost and the need for a proper screen. Who should skip it? Families that watch mostly TV or 1080p content, renters who can't mount a heavy unit permanently, or anyone whose primary viewing environment is a bright living room without the ability to control lighting. In those cases, a high-lumens DLP projector or a 1080p laser model could meet the needs at a lower price point. On the downside, the price tag is steep, and Sony doesn't bundle a screen or wall mount, so the total spend can quickly climb past $10,000.